Hello, Dr. Coker here, and this is a guide for the boss encounters from Smileton in Final Fantasy XIV. Smileton is not available until you've completed the Endwalker storyline, then picked up a quest called Cutting the Cheese in Old Sharlayan. Let's get started. The first boss is called Face, and he essentially has one signature cast that everything else interacts with. It's called Lines of Fire, and you will see several line AoE markers across the arena that you have to avoid or you will probably be one-shotted. The safe areas, though, will all be aligned with either red statues or blue statues, and although safe, you'll get marked with either the red frown debuff or the blue smile debuff. It's important to remember for the rest of the fight to always alternate your color. So players with the red debuff need to stand in a safe zone aligned with a blue statue, and players with the blue debuff need to stand in a safe zone aligned with a red statue. To make things more interesting, he does something called Off My Lawn, which is a knockback with markers on the ground, sometimes followed by AoE markers placed on every player, forcing them to separate. So you need to watch these effects and make sure you'll be in the right place after the knockback occurs, or that when you spread apart you're still in the correct lane by statue color. He has a spell called Temper's Flare, which does unavoidable damage to everyone, and Heart on Fire 4, which is a heavy hit on the tank. Use mitigation and or healing accordingly. The statues will also flip and change colors frequently throughout the fight. Just keep an eye on them as you go. The second boss is Frameworker, who will repeatedly use an ability called Leap Forward. For this ability, he will have big bold arrows flashing in front of him. Then he will leap in that direction. Wherever he lands, he'll do heavy AoE damage, so watch those arrows and avoid that area. Once he does this, he will start to multiply the effect. He casts Print Workers, where two clones of himself will spawn and do the same leap forward trick, but they may or may not be in the same direction, so now you have to watch multiple arrows and avoid them all. He will also regularly do Circular Saw and Steel Beam. These both do unavoidable damage. Circular Saw hits everyone and Steel Beam just hits the tank. As usual, use healing and mitigation as needed. Lastly, Omnidimensional Onslaught is one that typically comes later in the fight. He will put a set of wedge AoE markers covering half the floor, then a second set filling all the gaps, so the whole floor is marked. Just remember which wedges were there first and which were second, and that's the order in which they will smack you. Stand in a place where the first wedges had a gap, and then after the first wedges go off, quickly move there as the second set goes off. The final boss here is the Big Cheese, another boss with unique visual markers. When he casts Explosives Distribution, you will see arrows on both sides of him, but one set will have a few arrows while the other set will have many of them. Think of these as near and far, meaning that where you see few arrows, a bomb will be placed near the boss, but where you see lots of arrows, a bomb will be pushed out far from the boss. So on one side of the boss, it'll be safe to be far away, whereas on the other side of the boss, it'll be safe to be close to him. Pick which is easiest for you in the moment. To complicate matters, he'll also place mines on the ground when he casts Dispense Explosives. These mines will explode if you get near them, so keep an eye out for them as you're positioning for Explosives Distribution. He also does Left Disassembler, where there is a brief line AoE marker followed by a laser blast on his left side. Since his left is your right, the safe place to stand when Left Disassembler is casting is on your left side. Similarly, he sometimes does Right Disassembler, in which case you should stand on the right side. Now that we have those out of the way, the remaining casts he has are more basic. Piercing Missile smacks the tank, and Violent Discharge smacks everybody, and both are unavoidable, so just use mitigation and healing accordingly. Electric Arc puts a stack marker on a player, forcing everyone to stack, and Leveling Missile puts AoE markers on all players, forcing them to separate. And that's it for Smileton. Have fun with it, and see you next time.